We made this.
Hello and welcome back to Gotham University, the dedicated home of Batman content and also, fun fact for today, other Warner Bros DC Comics content. In this special episode, we want to break down and review The Suicide Squad, the latest DCEU film now available on HBOMax and in theaters. So prepare thy cheeks for spoilers, because we will definitely be getting into some gruesome details of this film. And with me in the captain's chair is fellow host Mr. Jason Melendez. Jason, at a high level, tell me, what did you think of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad?
Wait, I thought we were watching Guardians of the Galaxy.
Is it that on the nose?
This is a very controversial review for me personally because we were talking about doing this review immediately after the movie was done, and I'm glad we pushed it for today because even almost 24 hours later, I'm still trying to wrap my brains around it. Nothing negative for sure, but it's definitely something that I need to rewatch again. But if I'm going to give you an immediate reaction, it was good, but not DC good.
Okay. Elaborate. I request elaboration.
So when I made that little mark about saying we're watching Guardians of the Galaxy, that's kind of what I felt like parts of it was. We can go back and forth on this the entire time, but for the most part, it just felt like something that James Gunn did from a Marvel's perspective. Not taking anything away from his work or anything that he did with the Marvel Universe, but when I saw this Suicide Squad, I felt like he took pages from those two movies and brought it over to here. That's why it's kind of conflicting for me at the moment.
Yeah, okay. I see that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you score this in your opinion?
I'm going to put it on a 7.
Okay.
It was a good movie. Like, I'm not going to downplay it. Like, I enjoyed it. It was entertaining, but I got some points to fill in for this.
Okay. I mean, that's a good score.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I give it a solid movie. It was very entertaining. I laughed quite a few times. Having said that, I think the amount of times I laughed shouldn't warrant for a DC movie, let alone a DC movie called Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I see what you mean. They definitely did some genre blending in this film, and I kept coming back to like this existential horror type of a film that I feel like they could have leaned into, especially with the villain that the villain star of, like they could have leaned hard into that, and I could feel them going there, like especially with all that like mind control, the psychology behind it, and Peter Capaldi playing Dr. Gaius Greaves there, really the thinker.
Yeah, great name.
Yeah. Really just like, hey, we didn't spend too much time on the character name, we just picked it. Yeah. It didn't get past the focus groups.
No. Well, I think that character was made back in like the 40s or 50s or something like that. So not that old, but it was pretty old. So
yeah,
they weren't really going with, catchy names or anything like that.
But yeah, no, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I can't wait to get into more of the deep dive here once we get there. But I agree with you. A 7. And I gotta say, and we were just talking about this before we started recording, but when I sit down to watch a movie now, I, for these movie reviews, I think very critically about it. And I think, and I'm probably a little harsh on my first watch because of that, right? And it definitely started out a little bit slow once I saw that kind of fake, the distraction, Team B or whatever, Suicide Squad with Pete Davidson and Weasel and poor Nathan Fillion there. Once that reveal hit, and I was like, what? Like, I wasn't enjoying it really. I was like, this is not good. Like, this is a 5, at best. what am I? Why I'm going to sit through 2 hours of this. Oh man! But then Idris Elba comes in, and then John Cena comes in, and I'm like, okay, 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 okay. And I started to sit back and enjoy it a little more. And then, James Gunn's directorial style really started to shine through. Those bits and elements of comedy started to come through that I'm so used to seeing in a comic book movie. And like you said, maybe not the kind of humor you expect out of a DC film, especially one titled The Suicide Squad. But then I'm thinking to myself, you've got Sylvester Stallone voicing a shark. I, I just there's a lot of things that clash in this for me, and not badly, not goodly, but not badly.
I know I was going to try not to do this, and immediately, as soon as you started saying some of these keywords, I immediately went into this. Have to bring up the 2016 Suicide Squad because of the tone.
Mm-hmm.
That I remember being in the comics. I wasn't a big fan of Suicide Squad going into 2016, but I did some research on it, and it did have a very, very dark humor to it that was fitting towards the predecessor more so than it was in this film. So when I saw the type of comedy there was, don't get me wrong, I laughed my ass off in a few of these scenes. Like, there were some moments that I was actually like going, are you kidding me, with a huge laugh on my face. Weasel himself made me laugh a lot. He's like
that was very silly. Yes,
that was like a dog on meth, but at the same time I couldn't stop laughing. It was a great character. But and he is in the original Suicide Squad, or not the original, but he is in previous versions of it. I just couldn't get away from the comparisons on that. But having said that, the tone here was a lot different in a good way. Like you said, it was
lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they were definitely taking the piss out of themselves for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, high level, we both agree it's a solid 7 here. Directed by James Gunn. So James Gunn's filmography here, what's the backstory with James Gunn popping over? He's been doing these Marvel films, Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like him, his brother Sean Gunn, who, shout out, he is like a cameo in every single one of James Gunn's movies. And in this one, he happens to play the villain, the Calendar Man, which I stopped and I paused and I was like, oh, we're going to be talking about him. We're going to be talking about him.
Right.
So cool reference. And okay, since I already just referenced a reference, we're referencing the references, world building, connecting Idris Elba's character of Bloodsport to putting Superman in the hospital with a kryptonite bullet. I thought that was a clever way to ground this movie.
Yeah, and I will give James Gunn credit. He did his homework, because that is, in fact, how he's most recognized, is by putting Superman in the hospital with the Kryptonian bullet. So bravo to James Gunn for doing the research and not just throwing things in there for the sake of, shock value. I really hope that this leads to something. I don't know where you're going to tie into that story that Amanda Waller mentioned, because as far as we know, Superman doesn't get injured. I mean, I don't know where we're leaving off in the DCEU, because if you want to consider Zack Snyder's world, you want to consider what we saw from Joss Whedon, where does this movie fit in this universe? So having said that, I hope that when they did mention that in this movie, this whole Superman getting shot and put in the ICU, that leads to bigger things, and that crosses over to a Batman world with Calendar Man that was brought up earlier in the movie.
Yeah. That's the stuff that you want out of these types of movies. You want things to feel connected and alive and in the same world. And when you don't know where things line up, like you said, like, where does this film sit in the grander scheme of UCU? Like, what time frame? Is this before or after Darkseid? Right? Like where is this all coming in? And yeah. All we can do is take it at face value, and for what it is,
For now, yeah. I mean, given the track record that Warner Brothers has, there is no direction. But I'm hoping that James Gunn isn't a dumb person by any
No.
means. I mean, like you said, he just worked on 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And to circle back to what you were saying earlier, where does he fit in all this? How did he get brought into this world? He was weird story with him. He got into a controversial scandal over in Marvel. I think it was sexual allegations that was proven false. Disney booted him off of the 3rd Guardians of the Galaxy movie with no evidence of these allegations. He got kicked off. DC was like, hey, we got a movie for you that's also an ensemble film. How about you do this? Enter Suicide Squad. And somewhere in the middle of this, Marvel was like, oh, wait a second. I guess you are innocent. Come back over to our side and do one more movie with us. So now he's balancing between DC and Marvel. And again, like, he took his creativity, and he's a good creative person, a great writer, great director, and he brought this over to DC's universe, and he did bring in a lot of tie-ins going back to the whole Superman thing, Calendar Man, and I'm hoping there's more to that in future movies, if there's going to be a future movie regarding the Squad.
Right. I'm seeing here some breaking news as of yesterday. Walter Hamada, who is the DC Films president over at Warner Brothers, he said that Gunn is always welcome back for more DC projects. We have more stuff planned. We'd love to have him. So
I would love to see a second Suicide Squad movie, or a third one, depending on where you put the first one at. I want to see what else he can do. I mean, we can keep going with this, and we will keep going with this. I just think that there's a little bit of empty spots that need to be filled for future projects.
Sure. You are bang on about that. But his influence is all over this movie.
Yes.
You can see it very much so. I think for me, the soundtrack is what got me thinking about Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes. Yeah, it takes just like the first one. And even, again, going back to comparing it, 2016 also had that kind of awesome soundtrack. I know some people didn't see the movie, but there were some cool little clips from the first one. And this one also had some great songs. Can't think of any of them right now. I was more focused on trying to see the film itself. But it was catchy. I know that much. I know I was really into the whole music and the background of how James Gunn was introducing each character and how he was introducing the scene.
The score itself is great, you know. The actual soundtrack itself. See if I can pull up a link here. Every time I pull up a link, it asks me to open another thing. So there's another link. You know, it just drives me a little crazy. But yeah, here we go. So it opens with Johnny Cash. You know, you got that classic Folsom Prison Blues, right? You've got People Who Died by the Jim Carroll Band. You got the Decemberists, Fratellis. There's a lot of great like punk music in here, a lot of indie rock, pop. You got some great hip hop in here too. It's just a very eclectic mix of music.
Yeah,
fun and that I think is what the key moment is here, right? Because you know all these elements of punk and hip hop, the indie rock feel that they get, even the original soundtrack, it felt very renegade. It felt like, you know, these guys are renegades, you know, they're the outcasts, and the soundtrack just fits that perfectly.
Yeah, and I don't know the name of the song, but there was one that was super fitting. It was in Harley's scene when she's like open firing on like all those troops. It was like a very soft, very I don't want to say romantic, but it was very intimate. And
yes, that's a good,
and she's just blowing heads away as that background music is going. I'm like, that's a very Harley Quinn scene right here.
Yeah, and also like it was beautiful, and those elements of like bringing in, and this is James Gunn, right? Instead of making all the blood, he made them flowers and butterflies. And, you know, you can see it from Harley's perspective. And that's another thing I really liked about this, is that you see it from different characters' perspectives, like the Polka Dot Man. Every time you saw from his perspective, everybody looked like his mom. Like those little gags, I love that.
When I first saw him doing that, I was annoyed by it. But as the movie kept on going, I thought exactly how you thought. I'm like, okay, this is coming from Polka Dot Man's point of view. The flowers are coming from Harley's point of view. I'm getting it now, and I'm like, okay. I mean, it's different, but I like it because it's coming from their perspective. It's not coming from the director's perspective, which I'm more happy with now.
So you have James Gunn was both the director and the screenwriter here. So a lot of this is really really his influence, right? Like very much his style. You've got Henry Brom as the cinematographer on this, and I don't know too much about his work, but he was Henry Brom was also the cinematographer on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He was on a few other things as well, but I don't know if he was on anything with James Gunn other than Guardians of the Galaxy. So it makes sense that not only do you have the directorial style and the screenwriting style, but also the camera style.
It does make a lot of sense. And when you mention the screenwriter part, it does ooze out Gunn in this compared to Guardians of the Galaxy because of the dialogue that they had with one another. Like that whole scene of with them saying like, if you do such and such, you die. I just thought of James Gunn in Guardians of the Galaxy writing that. So I'm thinking, okay, that's some Gunnerism. I guess I want to try to say it is.
A Gunnerism. Yes, I like it. I like it. Yes, I know the scene you're talking about, and I actually tweeted out from our Twitter account at GothamUPod on Twitter one of those lines, which I thought was really clever, just fun. I'm a big fan of this fun lightheartedness, and more of that, please. But yeah, I think that they really nailed it. Do you want to talk about the cast a little bit?
You can't go wrong with Margot Robbie, first of all. I mean, she was in the first one. She's in this one. She did Birds of Prey. That one wasn't a hit at all. I watched it, not a fan of it. But having said that, that's the perfect casting right there. I mean, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is a relief for me because when I first watched Batman the Animated Series back in the early 90s and late 90s, I'm looking at this character and I'm thinking, am I allowed to have a crush on this girl? Because it just screams that she can be such a hottie in the real life. And then enter Margot Robbie. And I'm thinking, thank God this is not weird anymore. Blew it out of the water. I have nothing but high praise for her. And I hope she sticks around for more projects. There was rumors actually saying that she may have peaked, that she might be winding down from her career here. And I'm like, come on. People love her as Harley Quinn. I can't find anything wrong with her performance.
Yeah. I thought she was outstanding in this movie, and one thing I liked, they didn't in the other films. I felt like they deliberately made her like punk sexy, you know, and in this movie they kept her as a real human being. They didn't make her a sexual object for the sake of it.
Yes,
you know, she was just Harley Quinn, you know, deranged psycho killer, right? Like that's who she is, right? Like,
yeah. It's weird because in this movie, she's fully clothed, like almost the entire time, but I've never found her more sexier in this movie. I just love the black and red leather theme, the pigtails, and then when she wore the gown at the like second and third act of the movie, she looked good, and you didn't have to sexualize her in a way where it's booty shorts and tank top. It was just classy, sort of, covered in blood, but sexy. It was good. I liked it a lot.
It's a good cast across the board. You know, I didn't feel like anyone was sleeping, right? But she was clearly in her element, and that is something that you love to see. Idris Elba as Bloodsport. What are your thoughts?
Dude, I mean, when I first heard of the casting, I got a little disappointed because Will Smith wasn't coming back. And when they said who it was going to be, it was going to be Bloodsport. I thought, well, this is the same thing as Deadshot for the most part. They're both trained assassins who use guns for a living. But then when I saw who they casted and what he was about, you see all the movies that he's done before. You know, the Marvel movies. They rumored him to be in a James Bond movie, which I really hope that he takes on.
Oh, he would be an amazing
fantastic. And him doing this movie was a home run. I'm like, I was invested in this character, and I'm glad that they didn't kill him off. I'm glad that nothing bad happened, that they left room for another movie for him. So good job on his end. Love his performance.
Outstanding stuff. I love the humanization element in the beginning. Waller using his daughter as like as the bait, and his reaction and his interaction with his daughter too in the prison. I was
It was
like,
I was caught off
I was
guard with that.
laughing.
Yeah.
Me too. I was laughing, and I was like, "Oh, why am I laughing? This is amusing, but also it's a heartfelt, like, they're button heads because this is who they are. That's the family dynamic, and then you have that payoff,
Yeah.
right? So I also I gotta say I loved that James Gunn took the piss out of that whole, like, well, okay, Bloodsport, same as Deadshot, they do the same thing, because when we meet John Cena's character Peacemaker, it's a straight up like, he does what I
Yeah.
do. John Cena's like, I do it better. Like, straight up, just right in the movie, just taking that one criticism and being like, we are literally shooting it dead. Like, you can't make fun of this movie for this reason,
Yeah.
because we are making fun of ourselves.
They definitely acknowledged the elephant in the room there, and their interaction was just great. I mean, you're talking about the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. These two were just clashing perfectly, setting the pace for a spin-off TV show, which I don't know if you've heard, HBOMax did greenlight John Cena to do his own TV show on Peacemaker. So looking forward to that. We get to see John Cena and his giant bulge.
Oh my God.
How about that?
Oh, that was a character in and of itself.
Like, was he credited too? Was that thing credited?
Oh my God. My brother.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm comfortable with my sexuality, but man, I was staring at that thing and saying, bravo to you.
I mean, the camera gave us no choice. No. Like, yeah. And to that point, this is why I actually really enjoyed this movie, because there's so many layers to it. You've got that moment where John Cena and Idris Elba are going through the camp, and they're killing all the guys, right? All the bad guys or whatever. And they got that moment where Idris is like, no one likes to show off. And John Cena turns and goes, unless what they're showing off, dope as fuck.
And they're right? Like, yeah, damn it.
And Idris is like, God damn, like, fuck, that's true, man. And it's like, here's John Cena. Like, no one likes to show off, but he's showing off, and it's dope.
It's
I'm like, man.
And the whole scene when they're in the island and they're talking about penises, and he was just straight up like, he would own it. He's like, if I got to eat a bunch of dicks to save this country, I say yes sirree, or however he goes. I'm like,
if that's what I got to do for liberty, I'll do it.
I'm like, he was so straight faced about it. And I'm like, you know what? And it's funny because I had a chance to review Fast 9 about a month ago, actually, and he was also in that movie. And people crap on John Cena, and I don't know why. The guy's got range. He can go from being a very monotone, just serious actor to this comedic, dry humor attitude, and I love it. I love Cena as a wrestler, as an actor, even as a very corny rapper. He can't do wrong.
He's the more I learn about John Cena and all the work that he does outside of his wrestling persona, the more I'm just like, all right, that's a pretty genuine dude right there.
No, he's hardcore. He is 100% real when it comes to what he does outside the ring, for sure.
Yeah. Nothing but respect to him. Real glad that he got a chance to showcase some of his own, like, his comedic personality bit here, and not just be like, a hunky wrestler, action guy. It gives me warm, fuzzy feelings to see a person like him being able to shine.
And I'm glad that DC is going to give him his own show. And you guys got to check out one of the end credits, because it does kind of pave the way for that show. So looking forward to it. And I can't wait to see it. I don't know when it comes out, but when it does, I'm definitely going to watch it.
We shall see. Viola Davis returns as Amanda Waller, the bad guy, good guy in charge, I guess. I don't know how to pitch her character, but she's the overseer of the Suicide Squad. So, yeah, she's not a good guy.
No, I want to say she's considered a necessary evil. I mean, that is her character. She's not exactly a good guy. She butts head with Batman a lot in Suicide Squad moments. But Viola Davis was the perfect cast. When they put her in the first one and then they brought her back for this, I thought, you can't recast this person. Viola Davis was just amazing with it, and she kind of stepped it up a notch in this one, because there was a scene where they all started rebelling against her, and
Mm-hmm.
she was like, bomb their fucking heads, or she was yelling to just initiate the explosives on their necks, and
Yeah.
they weren't getting through, and she's screaming at her team, and I'm like, whoa, she is showing pure hatred and anger right now. It was great stuff from her.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, we need to talk about Joel Kinnaman. He's also a returning character.
See, that one is where I kind of lose points with him, unfortunately.
No kidding.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Great
Okay.
performance.
Okay.
I loved him better in the first one.
Okay.
So that's where the comparison comes into play for me, and the difficulties of separating these two movies. He was more of a hard ass in the first one, whereas this one, he was more of a friend to the squad. And I didn't care for that too much, because you got to understand, these guys are criminals. They're villains who have no choice but to be in this task force. And he kind of has to lead them into this suicide mission, no pun intended. And in this movie, I felt like he was very buddy-buddy with some of them, like with Harley, with Boomerang for a second.
Oh, for sure.
And he was in the, and that's where I'm kind of conflicted with, is this a sequel, a soft reboot? What is this to the first one? Because you can tell the interaction was with him and Harley and Boomerang. They were close. So you saw that from this. So I'm thinking, you're not supposed to be close to the villains like this.
I see what you're saying. I definitely see what you're saying. I'm on the other side of that. I really liked his character here. I was pretty disappointed at the end, which we'll talk about a little bit. Great visual effects sequence of what happens to Colonel Rick Flag there. But I was a little bummed, because I thought he kind of played the straight man out of the group. And you need that. You need that balance in a film like this, with a team up group like that. You need that, that straight arrow kind of like, this is how us as an audience would do or act in this situation.
Right. There's a movie before all of this came out. It's an animated movie called Assault on Arkham. It's a Suicide Squad movie, but it's considered a Batman movie, but it's not. Like you were just trying to, like what you did say, that you need that straight arrow person. In that movie, you have the Suicide Squad that are very rebellious, very, very evil. And then you have your antagonists, which were Joker and Riddler. And then you had that one hero that you knew was the dividing line between pure hatred and I'm doing this because I'm told to, and I got a bomb to my neck. And that was Batman. Batman was that line, and it was kind of a rough edge, because as we all know, Batman doesn't play by the rules, but at the end of the day, he's a good guy. And I guess with Rick Flag, he favored more towards the squad, and I didn't care for that as much. I know they did that in the first one by the end of the movie, but for like 75% of it, Rick Flag was very, listen, you guys got to do what I say, or else I'm going to blow your heads off. That was where this kind of faded away, and it was more like, hey, let's stop what we're doing and rescue Harley Quinn. You're in a group called Suicide Squad. You're considered expendable. Once you're out of that team, you're out.
Yeah.
And I didn't care for that dynamic.
Okay. That's fair. That's a fair critique. I don't know that I agree with you, but I can't argue with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, fair. That's what you call in this business a good criticism. I don't know what you call it in this business. I'm just out here trying to podcast, man. Other notables in this cast, I really liked. Very funny, Ratcatcher 2. Not 1, Ratcatcher 2.
She was definitely the sentimental favorite of the group. I did enjoy her presence in that movie. Her dynamic with Shark King and with Bloodsport was very good.
Yeah, played by Daniela Melchior, who doesn't have like a big filmography, but I can see that changing very shortly.
Oh, yeah.
She's young. She's only
she's 24, I think. 23,
yeah,
24?
like 24. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, the sky's the limits for her, and I thought she did a fantastic job with this. Her dynamic with the whole trying to get with Bloodsport why are you afraid of rats? And the entire time you don't know why, and then he finally comes out with why he was afraid of them and why he has a hard time being around her or Sebastian.
Yes, Sebastian the rat.
Yes,
very amusing. She was good. Played it sentimental. Her father, Ratcatcher himself, is played by Taika Waititi, and we get that cameo later on in the film, and it's a nice moment. I found myself finding more emotional heartbeat moments in this film than I had expected to, especially for something called The Suicide Squad rated R, right? With a giant shark.
And I think that's why I gave it the point that I did, because I did not expect so much sentiment into this movie. I didn't expect the kind of emotional attachment that I did. I would expect, like you said, it's called Suicide Squad. It's rated R. There's blood. There's guts. There's people getting literally ripped in half. And I'm expecting just zero attachments to most of these characters. And here I am going, well, I like this one. And this one's good. And I don't want this one to die. But that person did die.
Yeah, exactly. Another notable, you have Peter Capaldi here, who is, star of the British silver screen and TV there. Really loved him as the Thinker. I thought it was quite a silly, like very Mad Men-esque, right?
For sure.
Villain in the tower, there he played it up perfectly. And then David Dastmalchian, who plays the Polka Dot Man.
Yes, I felt bad for him, man.
Yes.
Like the entire time, all you're seeing is your mother in every single person in your life.
Yep. And funny, he is the voice of Calendar Man in the animated Long Halloween.
He's in a lot of movies, actually. He was the voice of Calendar Man. He was in The Dark Knight. He was one of the guys that Harvey catches. Mm-hmm. So he's done a lot. I think he's done a few Marvel movies too.
He plays the cop, I think, right?
In Dark Knight, yeah.
He's in Blade Runner. He's all over the place. You've definitely recognized. He was in Ant-Man. He played the character Kurt. He also is in this sitcom on television called A Million Little Pieces, which is one of the worst television sitcoms I've seen in my life. Do yourselves a favor and pass over it at all costs.
Done.
So unfortunate that he got cast in there. But I really want to talk for a moment about Michael Rooker.
What, the 2 minutes that he was in it?
Yes, I understand that he was only in it for 2 minutes, but what a great fake out of getting me to think like, hold up, what am I walking into here? This is Guardians of the Galaxy in an alternate universe. Seriously,
it's like Yondu just came down and was in prison and sent to an island.
Right? But that final, he stands up and he's looking out and like everybody is dead and or dying in terrible, gruesome, awful ways. And he just like has a psychotic break and starts running away, and then his head gets popped off. Very gruesome stuff. And also that whole beach scene, we'll talk about in a moment. But, I love the cinematography of just panning across and like, oh, yep, no, this is all death. This is all destruction. Everyone's going to die in a terrible manner. Yeah. Did not expect to see Yondu in this movie. And when I did, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, if you guys don't know, I don't really watch a lot of trailers. I don't really try to watch teasers all that much because I like going into things a little bit surprised. Just a little bit note about me. But when things took a turn, I was a little disheartened.
I didn't know where they were going to go with that, because I did know he was going to be in the movie. I didn't know how much time he was going to get in the movie, so that when he got his neck blown off or his head popped off, I was like, wait, that's it? Like, some of these guys got killed off pretty recent. Now, granted,
Nathan Fillion.
He's the voice of Green Lantern. He's Castle.
Yeah.
From Firefly. Dead in 5 minutes. But what's his name? Pete Davidson, right? I can't.
Pete Davidson.
Yeah, I mean, no major loss there, but.
Oh yeah. I mean, listen. If y'all take away one thing from this podcast review here, it's that if you don't like Pete Davidson, this movie is for
like
you.
I said before we started recording, I don't think he was ever a more handsome man than when his face just literally got blown off. I felt so ecstatic to see that moment. Oh my god.
I know. So let's get into the storytelling a little bit here. What do you
Yeah,
think?
let's dive right into this part.
Give me the synopsis of this film.
What it basically boils down to is that you have this team, well, two teams technically, that are going to storm an island to retrieve this weapon of mass destruction that is built
Mm,
inside of like a silo, and
hmm
it is being controlled by the president of what island was it again? It wasn't. It was like a Spanish name, and forgive me because I'm part Hispanic. I don't know the name of it.
Corto
Thank you.
Maltese.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it was controlled by one man, the president, and who gets dead, and then gets controlled by another president who then has zero empathy for life whatsoever, and then it becomes a battle between the squad and um, overall this government who's going to try to overrun the country and eventually the world with this massive creature called Starro, right? Starro is it called? The Conqueror? The Conqueror.
Starro the Conqueror.
So it's up to the squad to try to stop this being from becoming, active and mind controlling everybody in
Mm,
sight.
mm. Yeah. Corto Maltese is like a little. I guess it's like a stand-in for Puerto Rico, for Central America countries, for island nation countries. It is a fictional place. It was also in Frank Miller's graphic novel of Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, as the name of an island center of the incident, not unlike the Cuban Missile Crisis. So that's when I think that's when Superman gets nuked. It's in that moment, which I'm still reeling from. I've seen it years ago, and I still think about that. Anyway, yeah. So that's the basic premise, right? And then you have all these characters coming in. I think that for me, had the movie spent a little less time on this like fake out moment with the distractionary team with Weasel and Savant, Nathan Fillion, and even Harley Quinn like showing up at the beach, and then Pete Davidson's character like betrays everybody, and all the army comes rushing down, and they're like, "Oh, you're not so secret, are you?
Yeah.
We caught you." Oh, because Pete Davidson is like, "Oh, I betrayed you, haha," and then he gets shot in the face, and everybody dies, and it's a terrible thing. And you expect like this big superhero moment. I did like that subversion. You do expect like this big superhero moment where all the villains are now going to turn on their powers and activate and take out this army, and that would be the setup to walking in, right? But then they do that twist where they
Yeah.
all die, and gruesome, and then you have the real Suicide
Yes.
Squad that you pick up. I did like that.
You know,
I liked it, but I wish they didn't do it and spent more time with the characters, because it did feel like the character arcs didn't really land that well.
you know why I think you liked it? It's something that Quentin Tarantino would do, and you like Tarantino.
I do like Quentin Tarantino. You
So
are
that's
correct.
probably why you have a little bit of a fandom for it.
True. So the storyline picks up where we get introduced to Idris Elba, character of Bloodsport here. He's in prison. He's mopping the floors. He's picking gum up off the floor, and that's when Amanda Waller comes in and, dresses him down and like, we got a mission for you and you have to do it because we have your daughter. Haha. It's one of those fake out bait moments. And then we get John Cena, we get the Ratcatcher 2, we get King Shark. Yeah, it's kind of a wild setup to the film, like the whole first act, bringing them all together, and not unlike the Avengers movie in the first one, where they're kind of like butting heads with each other at first, before they figure out, oh shit, we actually have to team up and do this thing together.
Yeah, this one's a bit of a different dynamic. I like this dynamic. Only because I've already seen it done before in other movies, that it at first I thought it was going to feel rushed doing that, because it's, hey, introduce person A, hey, introduce person B, hey, introduce, but you slowly got to know these people. Like, you got to learn about Ratcatcher 2. You got to learn about Peacemaker. Whew, that's a brain fart right there.
Peacemaker.
You got to learn about a little bit of everybody. You get to learn about King Shark and him having no friends. Like, you actually got a little bit of everybody, and that worried me in the beginning because I thought that if you're going to introduce these characters as quickly as you were, I would hope that somewhere down the line we get to understand something about these guys other than, hey, you're on a suicide mission, good luck. So I'm glad that we got a little slice of every single character.
We did, yeah. And like you said, it's a little rushed, but it does work. And it's the pacing, right? Like each individual act has its own pace, and it generally is supposed to pick up. You have the major climax of the film, and then you kind of walk away from that, and everybody goes live a happy life free of explosive devices in their necks. The film centers on this single mission, right? And you've got Amanda Waller ordering them, okay, we need to destroy it and make sure that all the records are destroyed and blow it up. But by the end of the film, we realized that it was really the United States government was behind all the evil all along.
We're the villains.
And we're the villains. Are we the baddies?
We are the baddies.
We are the bad. Are we the bad? Yeah, we're the bad. Yeah, we're always the bad. It's not it's telegraphed like basically right out of the gate, like, oh, you want us to destroy the building and make sure all the records are destroyed? Well, yeah, of course there's something wrong, right? So it's just a matter of what it is. So when they bring Task Force X, the Suicide Squad, it's a lot, right? And getting them on the island is a fairly dull affair, but once you pick up with them inside the freedom fighter camp, I think at that point the pacing for me, it started to lockstep. It started to feel like, oh, yep, no, I'm watching James Gunn. I'm watching a film that I'm used to seeing. I'm digging this. I'm having a good time. And you got them, methodically going through the camp, taking out all those freedom fighters, only to find our hero, Colonel Rick Flag, who we thought was captured by these guys, was actually being taken very well care of, drinking tea with the leader of the freedom fighters, and she's like, oh my god, you killed all my people. It's like, what? Come in guns blazing, like, come on, you kill first, come on. It's very fun. I enjoy it. Great moments. There's some perverse black humor in there, and it's just a lot of fun. I don't know how else to describe the second and third acts other than just being a lot of fun. There's a lot of bombastic set pieces with things falling, buildings, people are climbing, people are dancing around javelins, which is really fun. But it's worth it. It's worth the time, right? And there's surprisingly emotional scenes, surprisingly touching scenes in this. And I think that overall, there should absolutely be a sequel with some of these characters. But yes.
It's weird because you said that there should be a sequel, and I absolutely agree with you, but there are certain, like, I do want more of this. I also think that there are some of those things almost put me off, though. Like, the emotional attachment, I don't think I was supposed to have. I didn't think I was supposed to have that in this group of people. Like, these misfits are meant to die, essentially. And if they're not going to die here, they're going to die when they go into their respective franchises, essentially, and go on against, Aquaman or Batman or Superman. They're not meant to be liked. I mean, with the exception of a few like Harley Quinn, no one can really hate her. But these characters were also B-level characters. And I honestly was surprised to have that kind of investment in some of these characters because Ratcatcher 1 and 2 are in the Batman universe. No one knows who really they are, and yet they're very liked. Like we said, like, she's a very sentimental favorite in this movie, and I'm glad that she got her spot in the main screen here. Same thing with John Cena's character. Same thing with Bloodsport. These are characters that you don't necessarily hear a lot of because they're not in your level of Batman and Superman and Darkseid and Jokers and your Lex Luthors, but they're here, right. And I'm glad that they got showcased. I guess I had to remove my own personal investment and say I wish I didn't like them in that tone, but I'm glad that they did get their showcase, and I do want to see more of it. It's kind of
So it did its job.
it did its
It
job.
did its
Yes,
job.
I just like I said, it's a very controversial review for me because in one sense, I'm glad that it succeeded, but at the same time, I didn't want to like these people.
Speaking of liking and not liking people, in Harley Quinn shows up with the first team that was supposed to be the distraction element, right? And she winds up getting captured by the Corto Maltese military. And she gets captured. She gets brought to the palace. She's dressed up in this beautiful
Mm.
gown, and she's treated like royalty. She meets the new presidente of Corto Maltese. He's a hunk. He's a Latin lover. He will make love to you, and it will be like waves crashing upon the rocks, right? Like he's suave, he's chiseled, and Harley is clearly taken with him. Like, oh my God, you are a piece of man. Yes. They make love very passionately, and it's all very respectfully done. And then you have El Presidente delivering his supervillain monologue, while staring out the window at this large silo called Jotunheim.
Yeah, that's what it is. I was trying to think about that the entire time. Like, what the hell is it called? It's not English.
Yep. So he's staring out the window, drinking his glass of whiskey on the rocks or expensive scotch or whatever it is he's got. And he's monologuing about how now all the world will fear us because now we are in possession of the great Starro, the beast, like he goes on. And then all of a sudden he turns around and boop, Harley kills him, right? Shoots him right in the chest. He bleeds out. He dies. And there's this is what I'm saying. Like, it's like, man, I'm not supposed to like Harley Quinn, but you can't help but feel for her because she goes on and she goes, I try to like a guy and I have the worst taste in men. And, I promised myself that, if I started to fall for a guy and he started showing red flags, I would just kill him. And
killing kids.
Yeah.
Kind of a red flag.
Killing kids, kind of a red flag. Yes. So I truly enjoyed. Here's the thing, right? As a film goer, you want to be surprised. You want your expectation to be subverted so you enjoy it a little bit more. Because otherwise, if you can see everything coming, if you can call it every time, how boring is that? Like I want surprises. And I was surprised by this. Genuinely, I enjoyed it. I thought she was going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to take over. And she was going to join. And then it was going to be like, oh, okay, so Harley's going to join the bad guys for now, and then the Suicide Squad's going to try and find her, and I don't know. I didn't know what I was expecting, and I'm glad we got what we got.
I think with that scene, I expected that from Harley because she's a wild card. No, I mean, she'll always be that, that loose cannon that you don't know, is she going to betray you? Is she going to not betray you? But her mentioning, her bad choices in men and her history with them and the relationships she's been in, I had a feeling that she was going to either kill him or have someone kill him because of her history with relationships and how terrible they ended up. It was just a matter of when and how, and her doing it just right there on the spot was the only thing that caught me off guard. The act itself, I was waiting for. It was just her doing it was a little bit unexpected at that moment, rather.
So she gets captured, right? Because all the troops come running in. They're like, oh my God, there's a gunshot and the president is dead. Oh no. And now we have a new president and he's an even worse guy. He's one of the generals, right? He's the worst guy. And we don't want him to be in charge of anything. Nobody wants him to be in charge of anything, but he's next in line and that's just the way it works, right? So now we don't get a whole lot of depiction of what this guy is, but we do get a moment where he's standing on the roof and the other generals are like, so what do we do now? And he's like, well, now we're going to, bring Corto Maltese into a new era of peace or whatever it is. And he sets the roof on fire with all the birds in it as a showcase. Yeah.
I think that's what pissed me off the most. Like, you heard it. Like, you heard them.
You heard them screeching, like a bunch of birds. Like, come on, birds. How, we get it. You're a bad guy.
I mean, I would assume that no animals were harmed in the making of this movie, but still.
We can harm him though.
Oh, but we're definitely gonna harm him.
Yeah. So Harley Quinn is captured, and she's going to be tortured for more information on the other Americans, right? And then we move into the next part where we have our Suicide Squad they meet up with one of the freedom fighters people, Milton. Milton is a really important
But
guy.
yes, apparently he is. But don't tell Harley that.
Yeah, listen, Milton is like the leader of the Suicide Squad. Okay, he's been there since the beginning. It's a subtle joke, and that's something I love. Like actually, yeah, it's a subtle thing. You know, Harley at the end of the film, Harley's like, "Who's Milton? I don't know who Milton was with us this whole time. Why was he here?
I like that.
Who
That
is
part
he?"
was my favorite. Like their interaction right there.
And meanwhile, Milton is just like a poor extra that they just pulled in. You know, he's with them the whole. He literally walks up the steps with them into Jotunheim, and he's with them all the way planting explosives. This guy's wearing Crocs, Jay.
He was literally with us the entire time. Wait, I thought he was Milton.
It's an example of the style of comedy that I think we're so used to seeing in a Marvel film. To see it here is you know, maybe it's a breath of fresh air, maybe but it's comedy, it's humor, and that's what it's there for. It's to take away that tense moment.
Definitely Marvel like, and that's one of the things that I can see coming into a Guardians movie. And it was different. It's not what I expected. It's not what I would even want, but I didn't think I wanted it until I just saw it in this format.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. It works. So you've got Milton, right? And he has like all the disguises, and he's got the truck, and he's going to sneak them into the city, and they're going to get into the city. They're going to find the Thinker, right? And they are going to storm Jotunheim, and they're going to destroy it and do what they do best. So that's where we land. But first we have to save Harley Quinn. And this is where we get to the point in the film where Harley Quinn, of course, you know, she's a strong, independent young woman who don't need no man. And that is extremely true and valid and proven time and time again, especially in the following sequence where she escapes the torture chamber and she kills literally everybody there and walks out, and she's got the javelin, and she just walks up to Colonel Flagg, who is attempting to break her out of prison as Idris Elba is climbing the wall. And you've got John Cena in a church tower, like getting ready to snipe some people. And they got this big plan, right? They spent like a solid 10 minutes figuring out this plan to break out Harley Quinn.
Oh, they had this whole elaborate detailed idea.
Yeah. Yeah. They had it down to a science, right? And then she just walks up. She's, "Hey guys, what you doing?" and the look on her face when he turns is like, "We were here to rescue you." And she's like, "You were going to rescue me? I'll go back in. I'll tie myself up."
Very patronizing.
Oh man, that was fun. And yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, at the beginning of the film, I felt like, all right, you know, this is going to be a 5, you know, what am I watching here? But then we got, you know, through that point, and I think it was that scene for me where I was kind of fully invested. I was like, 100% attention is on my screen, and I am here for this. All these characters, I want them to live their best lives. Okay.
Like I said, those were hilarious moments, and that's why I do appreciate that. But, and again, it goes into my own self-conflict where it's like that doesn't belong necessarily in a DC universe type film. You just said that that's something you would expect in a Marvel movie, but for it to be in a DC world, it's something that I would have to reprogram and say, "Oh, haha, that's funny." And it was funny, but to see it coming from the mouths of Harley Quinn, I would expect that entire scene coming from like Batista and John Cena and Zoe Saldana. But from the Suicide Squad, it's like, whoa, like it's funny, but I'm not expecting it coming from this group right here.
Yeah. I mean, I could see how, you know, if you're a longtime fan of these characters specifically, you would probably be a little turned off. I can definitely understand that. But you know, for me, a casual viewer of a lot of these characters here, you know, it absolutely works, and it gets me a little bit more invested in their stories, in their backgrounds, and you know, like audiences aren't stupid. They like what they like, and if someone really connects with Bloodsport, for instance, they just really like his energy that he shows on screen, played by Idris Elba, right? And they go down the rabbit hole of his story. You know, they might become like a new Bloodsport obsessive fan, and they purchase every single comic. They purchase every single film, every movie. Like name drop them, and you're there. And that's what this stuff is made for. Like, they're not being made for longtime fans. They're being made for new fans.
And that's where I have to turn the super fan side off and say, okay, if I'm an executive at Warner Brothers or DC, how am I going to grab as much eyes as I can?
Yes.
And you're going to take someone who's successful in a Marvel world like James Gunn, put him in a DC movie, put that kind of humor and that kind of dynamic in, capture the audience. Okay, we just got a bunch of people invested in Bloodsport, in Peacemaker, in Ratcatcher. Now we got them, and now we're going to make a franchise out of them. So
exactly,
I can understand that aspect of the whole dynamic.
Yeah. And let's talk about Peacemaker for an instant here. I have no knowledge of this character, straight up.
Very little myself. This is not someone that I'm very familiar with.
And now you've got John Cena, a international wrestling superstar, okay, as in a leading role in an HBOMax series coming to air, right? So what have we talked about before? Content is king for these streaming services. Content is king. The more content you put on your service, the more eyeballs you're going to get on your service versus Netflix, versus Hulu, versus the Goliath known as Disney,
dun, dun.
Right? So you pull viewers' eyeballs into your service, then guess what? That means you have them there. They're not just watching Peacemaker, but they're also going to watch Wonder Woman. They're going to watch Wonder Woman 1984. They're going to watch Justice League, the Snyder Cut specifically, and nothing else.
Nothing else exists.
They're going to watch, they're going to go down the rabbit hole of all the animated Batman films like I have, because hell yeah, like, why wouldn't I? That's amazing. This is the content that I want, that I really enjoy, and it's all here on this streaming platform. Absolutely. So Peacemaker, an unknown character, pulled from what, like a C, D level comic, no disrespect.
No.
Just the fact, right? And you put him on the big screen. He's got a silly outfit. He's got a silly helmet.
Toilet helmet.
But he's got a package that he's packing, right? And he brings the gravitas to the screen. And you're just like,
by package, you mean
his gun.
It. Yeah.
And by his gun, I mean his Johnson.
And by his Johnson, you mean
his wiener.
Gotcha.
And by his wiener, I mean his hot dog.
Oh, okay.
And by his hot dog,
ballpark.
Going down a little rabbit hole there with you. Oh, thank you for that. That was enjoyable. But he's, but he was interesting.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking to myself, Peacemaker, okay, yes, silly guy, but he went on this whole tirade about, eating dicks on a beach. That's funny. Yes, it's juvenile, and I admit that. I'm a 35-year-old man, and I'm laughing at it. But yeah, like that's taken to the full context of the situation. You got this grown man talking about this with a straight face. That's humor, and it's fun, and I enjoyed it, and I can take it for what it is and understand that, it's not highbrow, but not everything needs to be. And for him to get a spin-off show, great, fantastic. I can't wait to see it. So it did its job.
Yeah, I mean, bravo to Warner Brothers. I mean, if you guys have listened to our shows in Gotham U, I've been very, very critical with Warner Brothers over the last several months regarding the whole Snyder incident and David Ayer. But this one was a good call. Like I just said, you want to capture as many casual fans as you can and then bring them over to HBO Max, because it's a streaming war now. It's Disney Plus versus HBO Max versus Netflix versus Amazon, and it's not going away anytime soon. So they're trying to grab as many eyes as they can. And if you got to make some C, D level comic book characters into A-listers, John Cena was your guy to boost them up. So good job, Warner Brothers.
No kidding. Yeah, it's great. So circling back now, we're back in the plot. You've got the whole team is back together, and now we are storming Jotunheim, and we also captured the Thinker, by the way, in a very fun silly bar scene, which in my opinion was pretty forgettable.
Yeah.
Especially considering we didn't even touch on it here. But you could have axed that scene from the movie and it would work entirely perfect.
Yeah.
I do feel bad for King Shark a little bit, where they left him in the truck while they went into the bar.
They left him a few times while they were conversing. They did that at the bar. They did it in the silo. Like he's
Yep.
setting up bombs, and then he turns around and they're gone. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
why?
you can't help but feel bad for him.
And that's where you get invested in these characters, and I couldn't help it.
Yeah. And you got this wonderful moment where he wanders off, and he wanders into this into an aquarium inside the silo of Jotunheim. And he's got all these little sea creatures which are very clearly not of this earth. And they're all smiling at him and everything, and he finds a friend, right? Like they make friends. He's outside the aquarium, those little fishies are inside the aquarium, and they're kind of playing and whatever, and he has this childlike moment of wonder, and you can't help but be like, good for him.
Yeah, I wanted to be his friend. He needed a buddy.
They storm the silo, and this is when we split up into teams. You got one team who is setting the charges, and then you got another team going into the silo to figure out what it's all about, right? And this is where you have that big double cross moment between Peacemaker and Colonel Flag. Well, is it a double cross moment?
I would say it was, because I think Cena had his own interest in heart, whereas Flag just wanted to retrieve it and expose the United States, whereas Cena was like, no, I'm doing this for my country. And he was through and through with it, but his Flag he's a good guy at the end of the day. And there was a sense of I would say there was a sense of betrayal there, but at the same time, it's like, who betrayed who at that point? Did Flag betray the mission, or did Cena betray
the squad? Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing. Come to find out that the evil mad scientist, Dr. Gaius Greaves, there was experimenting on people to serve this giant starfish creature from outer space. And Starro is a mind control starfish, right? And I'm understanding the silliness as it comes out of my mouth. Mind control starfish, and it spits out like little tiny starfish, like little drones, almost like creatures that mind control the people. And it kills the person immediately, and the Starro takes them over and uses them as like a vessel to accomplish this. So pretty gruesome, and it's pretty invasion of the body snatchers type. Mind control, all losing your agency. It's assault at the highest level, right?
No, I was going to compare that with like what you said and Alien, as far as like hitting your face and pretty much possessing you at that point.
yeah, like face huggers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like basically what it is, and it's gruesome, and there's this existential horror to it. Like as a person, one of the most horrifying things is to lose your agency over,
right?
Like if you lose control over a bodily function, like that's terrible. You
Sure.
you don't feel like a complete person. So to be killed and then have your body be a vessel, that's horrifying. And one thing, they didn't try to make Starro real. You know what I mean? Like, it's very clearly pulled from a comic book. He's a literal giant starfish. There is no explanation as to why this giant starfish exists, right? It just is. And there's no, it doesn't try to cut corners in any kind of a way. It just is a giant deadly starfish that takes people over. There's no humanization of it. There's no explanation. And that, I think, is a really amazing villain, because you don't have to appreciate it. You just accept it, right? And it's terrifying because they're walking past cages of people who have been captured and they have the starfish on their faces, and they're stuck, and their consciousness feeds Starro and makes him stronger. So gruesome, terrifying.
Yeah, and the great thing about these DC movies and comic movies, you don't have to really explain why this thing is how it is and why it's not human. I mean, especially in a Superman world where gods come from space, or it, there is no explanation. It's just, oh, we have this like 100-foot starfish which resembles a butthole, according to John Cena. So yeah, you didn't need to really go into full-length detail. A part of me did wish that there was some type of background as to how did the United States capture this type of resource, but
I mean, it's all shown through like, like CCTV video footage where it's just, it's old footage of the astronauts, and they come down from space and they have it, trapped somehow.
Like, where did it come from? Like, how did they get that?
Right. So there's a lot of questions that need answering, but this is not the movie.
No,
for those
not
questions.
at all, and that's why I wasn't dwelling on it too much. But there is some, there is something there lingering. Like, where did it come from? How did we capture it? And how did we possess it into this monster of a weapon? But like you said, we don't have to dwell on it for this. Maybe on a future film or another branch off of this this universe.
Exactly. And then you have the moment where they discover, Peter Capaldi's character, the thinker, Dr. Gaius Glaves. He goes on this whole diatribe about how, it's the USA, and they're the ones who wanted me to do this. 30 years I've been capturing people and torturing them and using them in these experiments to learn more about the starfish, and all the records are on those computers over there, and they're right there. So you have Colonel Flagg. He's like, oh, all the computers. We need the files. And I had this moment. Okay, so all those racks, right, of electronic equipment, all those server racks and everything, all that data. So there's hard drives in there. And yes, Colonel Flagg does pull out a hard drive. And I was very thankful because he starts like rifling through and like grabbing them. And I had a moment where I thought he was going to say, the files, they're in the computer. The files are in the computer. And he's going to start looking at it and like pull it out like Ben Stiller and just like go through everything. I'm like, man, okay, Zoolander, let's back it up a moment.
I'm very glad that didn't happen. What year would this have been? What was this set
I
for?
know, but I couldn't help it because just the way that he ran up to that server rack and just started like grabbing at everything. I was like, what? No, that's not how you do any of that.
This is a computer, not literal.
Yeah. But then he reaches down and he opens a thing and pulls out the hard drive. And I was like, all right.
I mean, I know this is semi-campy, but come on.
Yes. And then you have that big reveal, right? Where it's like, oh, on this hard drive is all the files related to, America's responsibility and how we sanction this and yada, yada. I'm going to give this to the press. And Peacemaker's like, I can't let you do that. Waller specifically told me, we have to destroy those files. We can't let them see. I'm sorry. I can't let you do that. I have to do this, because that's what peace is. And I make peace. That's his whole character arc, right? Like whatever it is to keep the peace, right? And in his mind, right? That's his version of what peace looks like. Just, let's do what we're supposed to do. And that's that, right? So, but obviously Colonel Flagg sees that that's the wrong thing. Ratcatcher 2 is there. She's there. Sebastian is there, the rat, right? So you have this phenomenal fight scene. I love the choreography in this because you got this moment where John Cena's helmet gets knocked off, right? And it's just sitting there. And then the camera, as they're fighting, you see the reflection of them fighting in the helmet, and the camera's just panning. Yo, that was so cool.
That was well done. I was amazed by that. I don't know where I would have seen that in any other film, but damn, that was good from James Gunn's mind.
Yeah. Great cinematography on that. And the fight as well was very good. It was definitely a brawl. It was less of a fight, more of a brawl. Yeah.
Which I think you have to expect from a guy of a build with John Cena's and Flagg.
Joel Kinnaman. Yeah. They're both.
They're in shape.
They're in shape. You know what I really like, and this might be a little bit of a tangent, but John Cena has more of that like bodybuilder kind of a
Hmm.
build, whereas Joel Kinnaman kind of has more of that athletic
Yes.
build.
Yes.
So you had the two different types. John Cena was very like he was throwing his whole body at it, whereas Joel was more like taking punches, throwing punches, moving a little bit more agile, right? And really well done to use those two different body styles and their two different fighting style in that close quarters combat sequence.
Yeah. The only thing that I thought of, and I did think about this for a very brief second, only because it's Cena, was Vin Diesel and Jason Statham. You had a guy as
Mm,
bulky and as brute like Vin Diesel, and then you had a lean, very athletic Jason Statham going head to head, and that's kind of what we saw in this. Preferred this
yeah.
one a lot better, but
Mm,
yeah, that was the comparison that I saw when I first saw these two clash.
yeah. Yeah. It's great. And sadly, John Cena gets the upper hand
Hmm.
and kills Joel Kinnaman. And the camera shot as to how that happens.
The heart. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was detailed and gruesome and very
Ooh,
well done. Like you saw it impale and slice his heart. That was
yeah.
gruesome.
Yeah. I really like that is where I really appreciate it when movies take their time to show you what happens because as the camera pulls back and you see both of the characters realize what just happened, it's did John Cena mean to go full did Peacemaker mean to go full on and literally kill him dead? Or was it like was he trying to like, brawl with him, fight, 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 I want to stop you, I want to stop you, but like he saw an opportunity to get the upper hand and he took it, right? So I have to ask myself, like, did he mean kill him in this way? And now he just went down that path and there's no turning back?
I'm gonna say yes, and it's gonna be funny because the reason why I say yes, he did mean to kill him, is going back to appropriately the dick joke. You know, him talking about he will eat a bag of dicks to preserve freedom and to save his country. He will kill a human being to protect his nation, to protect the secrecy of the United States. So it would
Yeah.
not come past me at all for him to go, I'm going to end your life if it means protecting this right over here.
Wow. Yeah. 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 I think you're right. And it's also to your point, he also goes to kill Ratcatcher too.
Yeah.
Like so there's also that, right? And but you have this moment and you see on Colonel Flagg's face, he like looks around and as the breath starts to leave and his heart stops beating, he looks down, you can see it in his face. He's like, you're a joke, Peacemaker, like
Mm,
this is what peace is.
the last word
Cut
was a
him to the
good one.
core. You cut him to the
Hmm.
core. Yeah. Ah, man. But fantastic. And if you gotta go, you go out strong. And he went out
Yeah.
strong.
I mean, and I think he didn't win, obviously physically, but he definitely got inside his head psychologically with that last word right there. And it might haunt him. When he wakes up from that coma, he might just go ape shit and say, all right, well, I'm going to preserve peace the best way I know how, and that's kill everybody in sight.
That would be really good character development, in my opinion, if they touch on that in the show and show that particular moment is what changed him as a person and as a character, in the
Yeah.
show. However it all plays out, I think it would be really, really well done. Um, but then you have Ratcatcher 2 who sees that Peacemaker just killed Flag, right? And she now has the hard drive and she tries to escape. Peacemaker catches up to her and he's about to kill her when who drops in to save the day? Idris Elba. So Idris Elba, he pancakes down each floor, and as he drops to the ground, he sees that Peacemaker is about to kill Ratcatcher, and he's not going to let that happen. So they lock eyes. Peacemaker and Bloodsport, they lock eyes, and they're like, oh shit. So guns come up at the same time. They both fire at the same time, and then you got the little bullet going through the big bullet, which is a callback to the beginning of the movie when he said the same thing. He's like, I'm going to shoot a hole, I'm going to shoot a bullet so small, it's not even going to hit the sides.
Got it. Yeah. All right. I remember that because that was a pretty cool callback. And I was hoping that it would come back in some form. And they did. Well done.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good use of that slow-mo bullet effect.
Yeah, and it was good foreshadowing too, where they brought that up.
Yep. Really good scene, and it happens so quick that like good. Let's not waste time because now we don't like Peacemaker. We don't like John Cena anymore. Like he's now a bad guy to us, the audience, right? So we're like, nah, fuck him. Let's get him out of here and let's go fight the big starfish, right? So it happens quick, it's concise, it's clean, and we move on from that point. And that's when we get everyone. So the building starts coming down because Starro is being released from his prison, right? So here he comes. He's coming up, and he's gonna take over Corto Maltese. So whole silo, the whole Jotunheim thing, that concrete tower comes tumbling down. The whole army with the evil general, they're out there, and they're like, all the Americans are in there. We got to kill them. So the whole army is there, armed to the teeth. And here's this big starfish. You got the Suicide Squad runs out. Harley, you got Bloodsport, you got Polka Dot Man. They all run out. King Shark runs out, and there they all are. And they all turn around and look up, and there's Starro, right? And all the troops open fire, and they start trying to kill Starfish. And then Starfish guy is like, I'm just gonna, let some baby starfish out of my armpit and take over the military. So that's what Starro does. Suicide Squad is obviously much more in the head than all these military people are. And they know, don't let this thing touch your face because they can see it happening to everybody. And, so they're the only ones left standing. No starfish on their faces. So they're able to kind of save the day. And they get into this whole, battle sequence with Starro, and Starro can now use the individuals' bodies and can talk through them, right? So we get this weird line where the super bad guy president general, he's like, the city is mine, it's mine. They're like, we're not gonna let you have it.
Like, yeah, with the whole thing of him talking, like, it was a matter of time for something went into his face, and I'm glad that was not wasted because he was pissing me off. I'm like, something's got to happen to the man, and that starfish came right at his face. One thing that I really liked, I don't know how subtle it was, but in the beginning of the movie, he would tell Idris would tell Amanda Waller that he's not a leader. He doesn't lead.
Right.
And then that comes back right at this scene where he's pretty much telling the squad, you do this, Polka Dot Man, what do you see? That's your mother. Mm-hmm. And he's just open fires, and he got everyone's like best qualities and just attacked Starro.
Yep.
And that was just a cool come around right there.
To that point when he tells Polka Dot Man, that's your mother, and you see him look out and look up, and he sees the giant form of his mother, and the actor they got to play his mom, like, she's very clearly, like, they nailed that abusive foster parent kind of a look.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe
she
it.
Slapped him around clearly as a kid, call him to disappointment. That was definitely a mom you do not love.
Yeah, you could see it, like, all over that character's face. It's just like, oh, that's a bad mom. Yeah. That is a bad mom. Like, not even taking into account anything that they wrote about the character, but that's just a
you disapproved really of all of my girlfriends growing up.
Yeah. And Polka Dot Man gets his chance at redemption here. And I really, I saw it coming, and I was already sad. But when he destroys the starfish's foot with his polka dots, and the starfish falls and squishes him, just before he gets squished, he's like, "I'm a fucking superhero."
I hated that part because I was liking him.
Like, me too. I was pretty bummed.
What was it? I don't know if I felt like that was teased in one of the trailers where he yells that I'm a superhero. I don't think they showed it, but it almost felt like you knew he was going to die right after that. And it was an unfortunate prediction that everyone called it.
Yeah, it's that movie trope where you got this character at the peak of his
Yeah,
arc. This is the peak. He has the moment, and he's looking away from whatever it is he's supposed to
yeah.
be paying.
Like, where do you go from there? Obviously, you messed up. You caught your eye off the ball, and now you're getting squashed. Literally.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And
And
he
it was
goes
so
down pretty
unfortunate. I liked
terribly.
him.
You got this amazing moment with Ratcatcher and Sebastian where she's able to call in all the rats to kill the starfish, right? And it's this beautiful. It's not actually like visually beautiful, but the sentimentality behind it
yeah.
is nice. Where you have Ratcatcher leaning over Bloodsport, who's terrified of rats, as this literal ocean of rats climbs over him, scratching him and everything as they go through. But she's there protecting.
Mhm.
I thought that was nice.
I liked it, and I like the music in the background. It sounded very like I don't know what you want to call this music, but it was like da 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 da, and like a bunch of march, like a march of like the rats, pretty much. And you just see them climbing up Starro and just dropping him. It was a good, it was a good score.
And then finally, our girl Harley Quinn gets the final killing blow, if you will. Here, it's a team effort, of course, but you have what you were visioning with Harley Quinn and the javelin. She leaps off the rooftop, pierces the eye of Starro, and allows all the rats to flood in behind her.
It was a great moment. Yeah, she did have the final blow, but I guess the rats pretty much finished them off in the end. I mean, you saw a lot of gruesome detail in there. I mean, them chomping away at the nerves and crawling inside the nerves and blood filling up the eyeballs. Like, wow, this is gross in the most fun way.
That's like everyone's nightmare, isn't it? To like just be like swarmed with creatures, whatever it is they don't like, whether it's bugs, spiders, mice, rats,
my nightmare is waking up or just overall having my eyeballs covered in blood like that and just not see.
Yeah, that's God.
Imagine having your nerves chopped off like that.
Jesus. But like I said, it leans into that existential horror element a little bit. And it taps into some of those phobias that people have, and that's what makes it really impactful and successful in my mind.
Yeah, that whole ending with Starro and the gross, brutal blood scenes—that's what I would expect and appreciate in a Suicide Squad movie. So seeing all of that wrap up, I'm like, yes, like this is what I was coming to see here. This is what I wanted, and I got it. Everyone got their big payoff, and everyone wins in the end. Your casual fans won, your hardcore fans won. It was a good ending to that scene.
Definitely. And that pretty much takes us right to the end of the film. The final, I mean, not really act or anything, but in the final moments of the film, you have the Suicide Squad, looking out triumphantly. They're like, "Oh, we did this. We saved the city." And Bloodsport is able to blackmail Waller and be like, "I uploaded all this information to a secure server," which, by the way, I love. What a trope that is too. Like you just have access to a secure server this whole time.
Right? How?
This whole time? And you found time to like plug a hard drive into a network cable that was connected to that secure server, and you found a wireless access point that could handle the transfer of all this data from the hard drive to that server? But was
he working with Batman the entire time? Because only you can get access that quick.
Ooh, there you go.
Can you imagine that? Like, end credit scene, you see Bloodsport talking to a bat figure. Like, oh, that would have been so cool.
That would have been cool. That would have been. Honestly, I kept waiting for a cameo.
I was
from
too.
Either.
I knew there was gonna be an end credit scene because it's DC and it's Marvel. It's a comic book movie, and I was waiting for, like you said, a surprise cameo from someone from a different universe or a different franchise.
Yep,
didn't happen, but still surprised or still happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, for sure. I like that final moment where Bloodsport's daughter gets to see him on the news on TV. Like, oh, it's my dad. Like he's something good. I found myself surprisingly I felt that emotionally. I was like, that is nice. That's a good, of course we have to bookend the film. It opens with him and her, and now it's
Sure.
closing with him and her, and it's that moment where she can actually be proud of him for
Mhm.
once instead of being ashamed, right? So that's a nice moment. I really love this scene with Ratcatcher and Ratcatcher 1 on the rooftop in
Yeah.
Moscow, and that was a lovely moment as well. And yeah, I mean, it ended on such a high note. It really did.
It did, and me being a huge animal lover, regardless of what the creature is, I liked it that he finally embraced, and by he I mean Bloodsport, embraced
Mm.
Sebastian, because Sebastian crawled up his leg and fell asleep
Yeah.
around his leg, and he starts petting him, and I was like, "Aw,
Yeah.
good moment."
Yeah, and then you have Ratcatcher hugging King
Yeah.
Shark and like falling asleep on King Shark, and you see King Shark smile.
Yeah,
I'm saying King Shark because I can't say what the name was. I think it was
it was a Hawaiian
Nanui?
name, yeah, Nanui or something like that.
Nanui? Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, but no, he was King Shark. They just didn't acknowledge
Yeah.
that name in this movie.
Sure, Nanui. Yeah, I mean it's. I just didn't want to bumble
Yeah.
over the pronunciation, 17 times in this podcast record. But yeah, is there anything that I didn't touch on throughout the story that you wanted to click with?
No, we caught all of it. I mean, the two end credit scenes. We mentioned Peacemaker, him
Mhm.
being rescued, and now a show will be built around him. Now, the comedic end credit scene with Weasel waking up from his drowning and then just running
Mhm.
off into the island.
That was
odd.
odd. Yeah, like who? Where are they going? With
I
this,
don't know.
you
I don't think anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a typical Marvel move right there, honestly, where it's you have that one end credit scene which gives you a cliffhanger to something else, and then you have that one comedic moment where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
that was random.
Well, it's Sean Gunn in that mocap suit. So
Yes.
the Weasel is played by Sean Gunn in the suit. So it's it could just be like, hey, Sean, we're gonna throw you in at the very end just as a
here's your
part,
moment
because we shot it. We shot it. We got we can use it. So just put it.
Either way, it's well done.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all the moments, all the important pieces were clicked on. Everything was caught.
Yeah. So overview, final thoughts. What say you?
I mean, I'm still gonna give it a 7. I was like, again, remove the whole aspect of that. It's sounded like a Guardians movie. It was like we were just talking about, and it was slowly sinking into my head. It was a way to capture casual fans. It was a way to say, hey, these are your new players. Enjoy them if you will, and we'll put them out there on different platforms. Good job on Warner Brothers. I rarely give them credit. This is the one time where I will say, hey, you did a great job. I would love to see more of this. I mean, I hope we get more Suicide Squad, however you may will. I mean, we can go back to the whole Ire cut, because I know that's a huge Twitter movement going on right now. We can talk about maybe branching this universe off into something more. I want to see more of these characters develop, and we're going to see that with Peacemaker. I hope we see that with Bloodsport, and I want to see Harley Quinn continue on with or without Joker, with or without Batman.
Sure.
It's going to be, she's fantastic no matter what, and I want to see more Ratcatcher too. I want to see where she goes.
Yeah. Daniela Melchior, she really good, really good. I was, like I said earlier on in our record here, I think the acting all around by everybody was really good. Nobody was really sleeping at their role. I even loved all the side characters, all the CIA hacks, in Amanda Waller's Control,
Forgot about
like you had that big guy, and he's sitting there. He was funny. I liked him. He's like, oh shit, I am good at my job. I found him. I was like, I've had those moments, bro.
And when that girl like drop kicks, I think she kicked Amanda Waller unconscious.
Yeah, like hits her in the back of the head. Yeah,
like, well, okay.
You're like, yeah,
hero of the moment right here.
Yeah, exactly. And then she turns around and she's like, "What? There's kids out there. Like, like let them. Like, there's kids."
Oh my god, I forgot about that group of guys.
Yeah, man. So I like them.
The thing is, and everyone got their moment in the sun, and
you're right.
It was just overall good. Nothing, and I'm surprised because it was only a 2-hour movie, a little over 2 hours, and you caught everything, and that just proves right there you don't need a ton of material, a ton of time to showcase everything. Not attacking Zack Snyder. I love the 4-hour Snyder cut. I appreciate it, but you don't need all of that to get every single character into 2 hours. So
yeah,
it was well done.
Definitely. Anyone who's watched a Marvel film knows what a Marvel film is. And if you thought about what a Marvel film rated R might look like, I think it's this.
Agreed. Like if you took Guardians of the Galaxy and made it rated R.
Yeah. One thing I even though I was looking for the cameo of like a superhero, like, whether it was Batman or, I even had the thought of like, well, okay, here you have this starfish, rampaging across Caribbean island here, Central American island. It would make perfect sense that Superman just comes in and like laser beams him in half, and like, okay, guys, I solved the problem. I'm going to head back to Metropolis now and, keep doing my reporting. But that didn't happen, right? And I think it's a good thing that no actual superheroes were harmed in the making of this movie, because the Suicide Squad is inherently bad guy, right? And this movie was incredibly violent, incredibly gory, and I'm having an issue in my adulthood where I don't necessarily want all of my characters to be surrounded by death and destruction and pain and terrible things. Like how many times can we see Uncle Ben die on screen? Like things of that nature. And I don't think that Superman would have a place in this type of film. I don't think even Batman would have a place in this type of film. Working alongside the Suicide Squad. Like he'd be like, no, you guys are all going right back to prison now, and he's like, I'll deal with whatever that is later. You guys are going back to prison now, So yeah, I don't necessarily like just the amount of terrible like violence and mutilation of bodies and characters and all these things that happen. There is a desensitization that you get as an audience member. And I don't want my heroes to be mixed up in that. So that's my take on that.
It's fair. And I think that's why Amanda Waller recruited a group like this, is because only they can handle something like that. Now, if you want something intergalactic, you hire the Justice League. Or if you want something that the Joker's doing, you hire the Justice League. But for something as brutal as this, you send it to someone where if it comes down to blood and guts, you send your nastiest of the nasty, and if shit goes downhill, plausible deniability. So
yeah, fair enough. Folks, thank you so much for joining us on this episode reviewing and breaking down James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. If you have thoughts, if you agree, if you disagree, if you think you could do a better job at doing these podcast episodes with Jay than I can, then feel free to tweet those opinions at us at Gotham U Pod. And we're also on Instagram under the same handle. So you can't say we didn't give you an opportunity to tell me to shut up.
Yes, guys, give us a free plug here. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you want to see. Tell us what you want to hear. And tell us if you hate us or love us. Either ways, we love attention.
Yeah, and if you do hate us, that's totally fine. If you could just give us 5 stars anyway on whatever podcasting subscription you are using. We do. We are a part of the We Made This Network. Please check us out at wemadethisnetwork.com, a host of different podcasts, different blogs, different details, going through movies from all the way in the silver screen golden age of movie making all the way up to today. And folks, stick around to hear about what's coming up on the network.
Elsewhere on We Made This. The Movie Palace podcast.
So I normally just ask people, Robert, their general thoughts on Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah, what are your thoughts and feelings about Hitchcock?
Well, it's funny because we had discussed, how this talk was going to go today. And I kept thinking, why have I been so interested in Hitchcock? Generally speaking, I'm more interested in the less technical filmmakers. And Hitchcock is such a technical filmmaker.
We dig music.
How come you always refer to Jonathan Donahue as Donahue and you always refer to PJ Harvey as Polly?
Because she's overly familiar with Polly. Right.
Yeah, that could do it.
It freaks me out as well. Like I don't call any of the singers in bands by their first name because I don't know them. I'm not like, oh, there's my mate Johannes from Cult of Luna. No. It's Johannes from Cult of Luna or Johannes Person or, oh my God, it's Johannes Person from Cult of Luna sometimes. Like, that's how I refer to him.
So you're saying that it's sit down Mr. Ulrich instead of sit down Lars?
I think it depends how much I take an artist to heart, and Polly is very, very dear to me. So.
Well, she thinks you're a prick because you don't like Ministry.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast.
But you're not really quite sure what's happened there. It might put you off seeing the next one.
That does make a lot of sense, actually. Good point. All right.
Carl can always give us the information in a way we can make it understand. Me and Mark just go blah, 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 blah.
I occasionally sound vaguely intelligent when I try very hard. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I occasionally
whine about gay shit. I'm multifaceted.
Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.